Shabbat Shalom, my friends, and welcome back to a comforting community that simply wants to study Torah Lishma. What a wonderful Jewish concept, Torah Lishma, to study Torah for its own sake, without any intention of racking up any extra bonus points on the divine scoreboard, assuming even that such a scoreboard exists, without any intention of fixing that which is broken in our lives. We study Torah ki chayenu v'orech yamenu, because Torah is our life. It is the way that we discover signposts to make our way day by day through our existence. This week, I bought a breakfast croissant with butter 3 days in a row at my local Starbucks. And for that, I received 40 extra points, which means that sooner rather than later, I will be able to buy a very expensive coffee for a little bit less once because of those points. It was a special offering and it worked. So for 3 days, I give up my toasted cinnamon raisin bagel, ordered a butter croissant, got the points. I'm going to get a cheaper coffee. But what works at Starbucks doesn't always work in life. I visited a new doctor this week. Nothing big had just become necessary to replace one of the myriad of physicians that I have. She took down a complete medical history, boring but necessary. Mid-questioning, she suddenly stopped and looked up. "You're a miracle. That you're alive shows that God has some very important purpose for you in the divine plan." You know what happened next. You know the highly personal notion that I have regarding the existence or the non-existence of divine intervention in our daily lives. Theology quickly replaced medical science in the morning interrogation, even as I could hear the next patients waiting impatiently for their opportunity to keep their appointment. My doctor, a woman of faith, was trying to find her God. She was searching, and I had stumbled into the vortex of her pursuit. Our Sedra is VAYISHLACH. Genesis 32:4 and following, our third patriarch, Jacob, will be confronting his estranged brother Esau in the morning. Who knows what poison still dwelt in Esau's heart after all these years? Jacob, after all, had deceived Esau. He had stolen from Esau that which surely belonged to Esau because Esau was the firstborn son. That act of brotherly treachery had ripped the family apart. Jacob had fled for his life, leaving behind a weeping mother and a dying father. But now, several decades had passed. Jacob wanted to return home with his wives, with his children, with all of the wealth that he had accumulated. But Esau now awaited Jacob with a powerful military force spread out over the plain. Esau had forgotten nothing about what had happened previously. So what poisons, in fact, still dwelt in Esau's heart? Jacob had prepared in every possible way for the encounter. Now there was nothing left to do but to await the dawn. Jacob falls into an exhausted sleep. The young Jacob had once dreamt of a ladder stretching heavenward, a ladder in which angels ascended and descended. Now the mature Jacob dreams again. This time he dreams of a wrestling match. The rabbis have forever debated, with whom did Jacob wrestle? Was it with God? Was it with Esau's defending angel? Was it with Jacob's own immature and far from honest self? Was it with a demon or a jinn, or perhaps with his own guilty conscience? Dawn breaks. The wrestling match must end. The angel, the man, the night spirit, whatever he or she or it or they were, demands to be released from the struggle. But the dreaming Jacob refuses to let go. I will not let go until you bless me. Jacob now gets a new name. He will forever be known as Yisrael, the one who struggles with God and who prevails. But Jacob now wants to know his opponent's name. But he will get no answer to his plea. Why do you want to know my name? Said the other, and then it or he or they disappear. Jacob goes off to meet whatever destiny and Esau have in store for him. Rabbi Shlomo Riskin understands and accepts the reality that each and every one of us must go off to find our own personal God. Riskin embraces an ancient midrash that explains a really familiar passage in our prayer books. We don't say, Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as one cluster. Rather, Jews across the world address our prayers to Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. But many of us add in the God of the four matriarchs as well. The Baal Shem Tov summarized rabbinic thinking here when he stated that far better than accepting and absorbing into our lives the God who was served by those who preceded us, we are driven first to discover ourselves. And when we discover who we are, then we can begin to build a personal relationship with our God. Could or even should Jacob have accepted Isaac's God, the same God who had commanded Grandpa Abraham to bind Isaac upon an altar and sacrifice him? Could or even should Isaac have accepted Abraham's God, the God who seems to really enjoy putting those whom he loves to the greatest, most difficult and painful kinds of tests? Would or even could Isaac embrace the God who destroys Sodom and Gomorrah? So during the latter dream, God identifies the divine self by saying, I am the eternal, the God of Abraham and the God of Isaac. We understand that to mean that Abraham came to embrace God in a very personal way. Isaac came to embrace God in a very personal fashion. And now Jacob, dreaming there of the latter, is going to have to find his own personal understanding of himself and then of the God he would serve. When Jacob before awakened from that latter dream and says, Lo yadati, I didn't have a clue, what he really is saying is he didn't yet have enough self-understanding to be able to approach God. And that he knows he will never be a complete human being until he gets that self-understanding to permit the personal approach. For the next 20 years, Jacob will try on various understandings of himself and thus of God. He experiments with who he is and whom he wants to be, and how who he is related to the God he seeks. There is a logic here, in fact, that I believe Riskin had some difficulty in himself confronting. Who we are shapes the personal God in whom we believe. Even as what we experience in life shapes who we are, even as our successes and our defeats shape who we are, even as our ability or inability to give love and to receive love shape who we are, even as our dreams and our nightmares shape who we are, so do our loves and hates, our victories and our defeats, our nightmares and our dreams, all work together to share our personal understandings of ourselves and then how we can relate to God. The Jewish understanding of God is like a magnificent tapestry, a tapestry being woven by millions of us over thousands of years. That tapestry that tapestry will never be finished. As my new doctor discovered this morning, with weft and warp, she will add texture and shading every day of her life to that tapestry. That's what we Jews do. She didn't know that about Jews. That's what we do. So will we always do. We'll always do that as we do Torah Lishma, studying Torah for its own sake. That's a great, great image. Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Have a wonderful week. Take a glance at the tapestry while you're spending Shabbat.